So this is a demo. This is a demo of soldering a board that looks more like surface mount. And so here we have the Adafruit controller, and this is for the servo motors. Let me zoom in a little bit. Let me tilt the camera. Let's see. I should have done this before. Nope, wrong one. So I'll do some editing. And what you can see here are some headers, and those headers are mounted inside of holes that have conductors tipped in gold material or copper material. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with the soldering iron, and I'm going to solder down each one of these points here, sort of demonstrating, showing you them. So I'm going to turn on the solder vacuum snorkel, and we'll just get going. But the sound is going to get pretty bad because of the sound of the vacuum. So I'll just demonstrate. I'll do this. It's got 5. Okay, let's see. All right. Ah. Nope, that was not good. There we go. The tip is too big. Yeah, that's good. There we go, that's better. That's perfect. That one is okay. I'm going to turn this up. Much better. Much nicer. It needed more heat. There we go. Run down. Oh, got both of them. Oh, didn't even need to. There we go. So as long as the tip is clean and the soldering iron is hot, you don't even need to touch it very long. Boom. Oop, messed that one up. And I'm just going for the solder to run on its own. There we go. Alright. So let's take a look. Let me pause. This is the finished product. Let's unhook this from the lobster. So this is our finished product. Let's unhook that from the lobster. And as you can see, all the solder beads there. I had some tape holding it in place. We have the power and ground header. And then we have all the signal headers for the servos. And then along the right-hand edge here, we have the power bank for the supply for the servos, for the servo control. And so what you really want with your solder bead is you want a very nice, almost teardrop shape that doesn't go too far above the conductor connection. So let me zoom out, see if I can bring this a little closer, try to get a good shot for you. And you can see here our solder beads, they do not short across. So this is the finished product. And so for this, for the soldering station, we had a temperature of about, I believe it was a temperature of 650 degrees roughly. And we're using lead solder. There's the soldering iron. And there is our finished product for our circuit. And so the difference between this type of soldering and the soldering together of two wires is how you apply the solder. And so what I ended up doing is I touched, because it's such small confined spaces, I touched the soldering iron on one side, a little bit more to the top of the lead, and then I put the solder in and I feed that solder. And so we have here solder, we touch the iron, and then we feed the solder on the other side, and the solder should run into the conductor or on the conductor. And so this is an example of soldering leads or components onto a board. We're going to do a couple of solders so that you can actually see them. And so I have some headers mounted, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to touch the soldering iron on one side of the header pin and then touch the solder on the other side. And we'll let the solder fill the hole, just like that. It's a very quick and easy motion. You have to make sure that the soldering iron stays wet. There we go. Melt, fill the hole, melt, fill the hole, just like that. Beautiful solder joint. So let's do the others. We have that one. We have this one. We have the next one. And I have my soldering iron here set to 650 degrees or so. Fill the next one. Fill the next one. Next one. And you notice how I'm holding the soldering iron fixed but I'm moving the solder wick into the conductor, and when it's doing that and it's hot, it'll fill the hole. So let me do that one. Okay, so let's try the next one. Clean. Melt a little solder to get it nice and hot. The tape is coming off. It's holding it in. You go ahead and get a nice joint there. Next one, there. Next one. Hopefully you can see it in the camera. I'm not occluding it. Next one. Let's do that one. Oops, bridged it. So let me go ahead, get my solder extractor, and remove the extra solder. There we go. Let me redo those beads. No, it looks good. It looks good. So I'm going to go ahead, stretch out the wick, and go ahead, and there's another one. There's the next one. There, that bead was a tiny bit too big for my liking, but it does the job. That one, clean. Clean some more. Clean even more. And there's another one, good bead. Another one, really good bead. Another one, very good bead. So we're done with those two sets of headers. And so what I'm going to do is let it cool a little bit. I'm going to take the tape off, and you can see those headers are held in nicely and in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is do the next set of headers. So I'm going to take the header, I'm going to push it up through the bottom. You'll see the pins emerge out of the circuit board there, like this. And I'm going to do the next bank of headers, push that through, and then I put a piece of tape on the bottom to hold it just in place so that I don't have to work too hard when doing the next solder. So we'll see here a little bit of a side view. Let me pull the tape around so that the tape holds it in place, and pull the tape around over here on the next side, other side. Tape holds it in place. So now it's held in place, and you can see that the pins stick through the bottom of the board, and I'm just going to go ahead and solder them down. So I'm going to take the lobster and I'm going to turn it this way so it's a lot easier to see, and I clip in the alligator clip on one side, clip the alligator clip on the other side. Let me move this up a little bit, the lobster, and I like to push it down so that it's on top of something, the roll of electrical tape, so that they're poking through as much as they can. Okay, so that looks good. They're poking through, and you can't see because this camera is on the top view, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solder the remaining joints here. So I'm cleaning off my soldering iron. You can probably hear it quite a bit. Let me pan over here. Okay, and go back to the circuit. So let's try this out. So we're going to solder over here. This is a little awkward because I want a camera to see it, and I'm going to solder there. So I'm touching the soldering iron on the right-hand side of the pin, and I'm feeding the solder on the left-hand side of the pin. And so I accidentally touched the soldering iron to the electrical tape. We've got a little bit of plasticky smell in the room here. And feed the solder. There we go. So let me try again here. And because the pins are so close together, I'm putting the soldering iron on top to the right of the pin and feeding the solder on the left-hand side. So there's another pin. Oops. I need to clean off my soldering iron because I'm not getting a good contact. Okay. So let's try that. The next pin. Again. There we are. Again. Once it heats up to good temperature, in my case I set it to 650 degrees, the solder feeds very nicely when you're trying to make your connection. That last one was a really good bead. Okay, so here that's a little bit too round for my liking, but it works. So let me go ahead, pull out more solder, clean the tip. You want to make sure you have a clean tip, which is properly tinned, no bubbles. And let's do this one. Melt a little bit on top on the left. There we go. It's a good bead. A little too much solder on there. And I'm using the flat side of the tip to get everything going. There we go. That was a decent bead, maybe a little too big. Clean the tip. Let's clean the other side of the tip. And we have a few more to go. So you can never have a tip that is too clean because you want to get the excess solder off so that you don't get a bubble. You want a very nice little teardrop with minimal solder but a good connection. There we go, that's good. So we'll do the 6 remaining. 1, 2, 3, and you get the finesse, the hang of it over time. That's 4, 5, and 6. There we go. Okay, those are some good connections. Our soldering iron is very much up to temperature. But we're not done yet. Let's go ahead and let's get the other pieces of connector that we have. Here, I'll just lay it there. We have another header, and that's going to go along the right-hand edge. And then we have a tie down that's going to go in the middle, and that's going to connect our ground and our voltage. Okay, so let's do that. So again, okay, well, I have my prototype, my model here, and so I'm going to take my connector and I'm going to push it up, down rather, through on the right hand side like that. And when I do that, the pins are going to stick up on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, flip that over. I'm going to take my bit of electrical tape, and I will probably get a different piece that I've stuck to the table here, and I'm going to lay that across the electrical tape, just holding it in place to make it easier for me when I'm doing the soldering. So as you can see, it's sticking up on this side here, on the right-hand side in the video, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach the alligator clips for the lobster, and I'm going to go ahead and do the soldering of these pins on the header along the right-hand side of the video. So let's go ahead and do that. Clean off my tip, and let me get a nice length of solder wick to do the soldering. Got a little bit knotted here. I'm going to untangle this. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go ahead, straighten that out, clean the tip, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start from the furthest one this way, working my way back. So I put the soldering iron on the left hand side of the pin, heat it up, wet it with some solder, get it hotter, feed it, there. Do it again, feed it, and once it gets hot enough, I don't have to re-wet it. I just use the molten solder already on the iron to heat up the pin to accept the solder. Okay, so that went pretty quickly. That's what a good solder looks like. You'll have many bad solders in your time, but with practice, you develop your muscle memory on what a good solder joint would look like. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to attach the screw down here. I want to turn it over so I get my bearings here. And so for this circuit, the screw down, tie down, is going to face outward like that. So we have the screws on top, and then we have the receptacles that accept the wire, and as you screw it down, it makes that connection as it bites into the wire. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tape this down like that to the board, flip it over, and you can see the two pins jutting out from beneath the board. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to attach the lobster, and just for good measure, I like to put something underneath it. I'm going to put the roll of electrical tape. And so here I'm going to do the solder for the right hand pin and the left hand pin, completing this particular board. So I'm going to go ahead, put some solder on the iron to tin it. Molten solder is much harder than just the metal. So I'm going to touch it very gently. Touch it on the right hand side. It heats up very quickly. Fill. Heats up very quickly. Again, touch it, fill. So you don't need a lot, and it happens very quickly. And as you can see here, I have, let me show you the profile. I'll unhook this from the lobster, and I'm going to show you the profile. You can see the solder joint here. Very nice bead, almost like a very thin teardrop, and that's what a good solder looks like. So again, we have our finished product. We have our Adafruit 16-channel servo control board, and we've soldered all of the headers as well as the tie-down, completing the circuit, and then we're going to interface this on a breadboard to the Arduino to control servo motors for the animatronic head. Till next time.